Hi everyone, Darren HK here. I'm with Michael Sands from Teams by Design. Welcome to the Outsourced PM podcast show. Michael, what a catalogue of subjects we've covered so far. And look, people, if you haven't gone back and had a look at the episodes we've already done in the Outsourced PM podcast show, please do that, because we've covered how to do taking leasing inquiry using virtual assistants. We've talked about inducting the tenant. We've talked about application processing. And last week, Michael, or last episode, we talked about how you had 0 late rent payers, like not even 1 day behind, for 650 doors over 2 years. And that is insane. I personally couldn't even boast that. So if you haven't heard that episode, please go back. But Michael, what sort of feedback have you been getting so far?
It's amazing, the feedback from people thinking, wow, this is so easy, I could be doing it. But there's so much red tape that offices have. And I think that's largely because they think a lot of this is overcomplicating. But it's not.
A lot of people have speed humps in their head, and we get it. And they have a speed hump that, you know, I'm not going to be able to get my tasks done accurately. They're not going to be done on time. I've got a problem with English skills, and there's all these speed humps and mindset blockages that we have. Believe me, the officers that are using virtual assistants in property management right now don't have a problem with those issues. And so we've also covered episodes, you know, with those particular speed humps that people have to even go back. But look, it's a clear fact that staff or outsourced workers, particularly from the Philippines, who are with Teams by Design, can do up to 80% of your property management tasks. So go to teamsbydesigntasks.com, where we've given you a list of all of those 30 things. So make sure you get to that. But today, Michael, we're talking about another big splash in the pond. So last episode, we talked about how you had a 0 late rent over 2 years of 650 properties, which is insane, and how you did that with virtual assistants. Well, this week we've got another big splash in the pond, which is how you got with 650 properties spread over 84 suburbs in suburban Melbourne, and how you achieved a 0 vacancy rate over 2 years. With that, using virtual assistants. Again, this stuff's insane. I've never seen this done before.
Yeah, but everything's right in front of you, Darren, to be able to do things like this. And it's working out what the problems are. And granted, it didn't happen overnight. We had to look at every part of the business and every part of this process and then implement it. And then we saw quite rapidly the changes were coming to fruition. And, you know, again, like I wanted to be traveling. I wanted to be able to work from Bali. I wanted to be able to go on holidays. I didn't want to have the headache of all these overchanging leases. And I think typically our average length of lease was like 18, 19 months. So it was longer than other agencies where they were like 13 months average leases.
So I think everyone, you're going to understand, to achieve these amazing results, there is unlearning that you need to do from the traditional models and the traditional thinking. And I think just starting off, Michael, straight off the bat, when it comes to leasing properties fast and where you had a 0 vacancy rate, there is some unlearning that if the people listening to this want to achieve this, one of the big unlearnings is to have it, or it must be unacceptable for you that if you've got you've got properties for rent, it's very typical, and particularly consumer affairs like in, Department of Fair Trading in New South Wales, or what's called CBS, or Consumer Business Affairs in South Australia. They're constantly getting complaints from tenants where their leasing inquiry or their inquiries on rental properties through, the big property marketing portals or whatever, they're not getting attended to. Tenants are getting ignored. They're not getting replied to. And the response from officers is, well, we're too busy. But out there, people, this is unacceptable. And this goes something deeper around, Michael, the culture that people have, that tenants are still treated second best. What's your feedback on that?
They totally are. I mean, there are so many people now, so many agencies that they're pre-qualifying applications before they even speak to the tenant, and then they're kind of disregarding, when you got a property and you get 30 people that are inquiring, it can be quite hard and arduous. going through all that. I think that if there are people out there that are, and it depends on the size of the agency too, right? So we would have properties coming up for rent. We could transfer people inquiry over to other properties. Some agencies, don't have enough properties for rent at the moment. That follow through customer service. I mean, your tenants can be one of the best referral partners that you could have, bringing business to. If a tenant calls up and asks to view a property, don't feel exhausted as though you're giving away your time just to show them a privilege of showing them a rental property, right? They're calling because they want to do business, not so much with you, but with the property. You are a gatekeeper. You are the thing that blocks them from getting that property. And I guess there's that hostility in a lot of that. In a lot of places, the hostility, Darren. You see the tenant feels angst. I'm calling an agent. I've dealt with 10 or 20 of them at the moment that don't return my call. And then you get the property manager or the leasing person. It's like, oh, another inquiry. They're not going to get this. We've got 50 inquiries already. They've got no chance. Why should I call them back? And there's this back and forth. But Darren, it's really easy when you've got like a virtual assistant, someone that's dedicated to take those calls, take those emails, respond to them.
So let's just talk about that. And everyone out there, you've experienced this yourself. Put yourself in the shoes of your tenant, because I want to make this unacceptable. Right now, we just got this, well, that's just the way it is. But it shouldn't be that way. Now, for example, another good parallel to this is doctor surgeries. They're just so busy, they don't care about the patient any longer. So that's where, you book in to see a doctor at 10 a.m. and 10:40, 40 minutes, 45 minutes later, you're still sitting there waiting, and you just get the feeling that you've been trapped like cattle. And that's what tenants feel like, being trapped like cattle. And this is a belief system that we've had in property management for many, many years. And Michael, I think we agree property management has changed over the years. It's no longer, people renting property are no longer renting property simply because they can't afford to buy. The actual laws and legislations have been changed around, well, tenants are now going to be renting for life. This is a very viable lifestyle alternative. And so believing that, okay, we serve the landlord, who cares about the tenant, has to stop. And I think the other thing too, Michael, is there is a level of, if property managers are managing 100, 120 properties each or whatever, and that's another discussion for another day, because I feel that they just manage too many, then I get it that if they're getting swamped with a lot of inquiry coming in, they're not able to attend all of that. That's where the virtual assistant comes in. So let's talk about, we've identified there is a lot of tenants not getting responded to. They are getting ignored. They are getting upset. That gap there, how are virtual assistants right now going to jump in there and not and fill the negative, but turn it into an amazing positive? Let's talk about that.
Being able to reply to the inquiry to start with,
quickly.
That makes a world of difference. Because people, they ask questions, and they're common questions. When's it available? When can I get through? Is the rent negotiable? Does it accept pets? Like they're the same type of questions. Forgetting that you can put a lot of these questions and answers on the advert. Having someone to say, hey, Darren, yep, you're looking at 1 Smith Street? Sure. Have you seen the virtual tour yet? Or have you seen the video walkthrough that we've done? No? Okay, I'm going to send you the link now. Take a look at it. Let me know if this property suits what you're looking for. If it doesn't, let us know and we'll see if we have another property, or we'll keep you on our database. Otherwise, we'll make a time for you to go through.
Michael, I can already hear it. I can hear the voices saying, we haven't got time for that. We haven't. Yes, you haven't got time for that. That's why you need a virtual assistant to be able to do this stuff for you. Now, Michael, we've got a lot of communication channels that are coming in. So property managers, they haven't got time for it. I get it. I understand. Yeah, you're managing, I think they're just managing too many properties anyway, but we've got inquiries coming through on the phone. We've got inquiries coming through by email. We've got inquiries coming through SMS. We've got inquiries coming through Facebook Messenger. Now we've got inquiries coming through Instagram Messenger. How are virtual assistants going to be dealing with all of those, Michael?
Well, I mean, that's easy too, because that's what they're plugged into. Like that's what they respond to the any person. They'd be responding to the Facebook messages, the Instagram messages, the phone calls, all the emails from like realestate.com, rent.com.au. Like they all go through to certain emails. It's really easily managed. And then there are booking platforms too that people are using, and that's also like a buffer tool that captures all the emails. So all that information is readily there. But I think agencies find that the person who's normally domiciled to do that is busy. They're burnt out. They get frustrated. There's complaints. And, you know, I don't think anyone can really come back, Darren, and say, no, everyone who does this job is really happy when they do leasing and they get swamped with 400 inquiries and 50 applications on the one property. And you're not giving up control either. I think there are a lot of property managers and leasing managers that think that if a virtual assistant was to do this, they're losing control. But you're only losing control if you don't communicate with your virtual assistant, right? If you don't know what's going on, if you're not on the same page, if you're not saying, hey, today, this is the property we've got coming up for rent. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. It's in this location. This is the type of tenant that would ideally suit. So when the VA is fielding inquiries, they know, hey, this person's going to be a good person for the property, right? So same with like, you know, we've touched on applications before and like doing reference checks. And property managers used to say, no, I make all the phone calls myself because I listen to the pregnant pauses. And those same people are now sending out email versions of rental references and not calling the agents anymore. You know, it's whereas the virtual assistant, they're trained to listen to the pregnant pause. They've got the time to do it. Right. So it's mindset. It comes down to mindset, and having a virtual assistant isn't to replace the role. It's to, you know, you're essentially trying to put everyone through this funnel so you get the best person who qualifies for that property.
Let's just keep on digging on this inquiry thing. And I'm going to put my old school property manager hat on here and start firing at you, Michael, because already you're rattling my cage. And so I get if I've got virtual assistants calling my tenants, responding to their inquiry, I've already got problems with this, Michael, as the old school property manager, because what about the Filipino number, the Philippines number coming up on my phone? Well, if I'm a tenant, I'm not going to pick that up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. But what we do when we make external phone calls, we mask our numbers to be the office number. So when we're calling people, it looks like, you know, your office in Adelaide is calling, or your office in the Gold Coast is calling, or your office in New Zealand is calling. Like, it doesn't matter where the office or agency is, we can use that phone number. So that's what looks like it comes through as.
This is technology, right? So the number can actually come, which is great. Okay, old school hat on, another rock I'm going to fire, another missile I'm going to fire at you. What about their English? You know, having that Filipino accent, isn't that going to put tenants off?
No, I mean, I think a lot of the virtual assistants have better English than most of the Australians. Right, like it's clearer to understand. The phone lines are all pretty clear, but that's part of our selection and recruitment process, Darren. Like, we don't just recruit anyone to take phone calls. Like, we listen to voice, we listen to pronunciation, we listen to you know, video, audio. We're really mindful of that. And I personally always listen and think, what would the other person on the other end of the line think of this voice? And, you know, with that, we just don't have any issue. Hundreds of thousands of calls, we just don't have that as a problem. Like, that is not an issue for us. I know there's other outsourcing companies out there and they focus in real estate and other industries. And yes, there are issues with voice tasks for them, because that's not what they look to recruit for. And how they recruit is a lot different to how we find people. Like, they'll find people in areas that, you know, English is a third language. Right. I mean, there are telco companies, Darren, that you can call and listen to. You know, listen to. That's what other outsourcing companies are recruiting. We take really careful consideration when we're listening to our applicants and recruiting.
Yeah. So I guess everyone as well, we're about to do an episode, podcast episode on all the checkpoints of the recruitment process that Teams by Design to, right from when they get an initial contact right through to employment, and the many checkpoints that they've got to go through to get to that level where they're able to get on the phone and call your tenants and have a very good conversation and more importantly, do all the things that your office is not doing right now, that's falling over in, has been doing for years, and unfortunately, you've allowed that to be acceptable. And I'm hoping that right now some dominoes are falling down. We're having some aha moments here. We're having an epiphany that, yeah, tenants shouldn't be treated second best. We should be able to get back to all these inquiries. And that's what the virtual assistant solution is. That's what's going to be the solution to the problem. Let's move on. So we've talked about having our virtual assistants to be taking inquiry, to getting back, filling the void, filling the hole that officers just haven't got time for. Now, Michael, some years ago, I remember it's probably over 10 years ago now, when a big online booking system came out, and it was like salvation for the whole property management industry because the phones are ringing off the hook. The officers couldn't get to them. And now tenants could book online automatically. And let's agree, the online booking systems have been a really big help to the industry. But as technology goes, it doesn't fix the entire problem. So, Michael, what are the gaps that these online booking systems just simply don't do, and how can virtual assistants fill that void?
Yeah, I found, so we onboarded with the booking platforms quite early on. They were fantastic. It was a new experience for tenants out there. Then it got to the case where tenants were booking into all these inspections and then not turning up to inspections. And so then it would, then the software changed to kind of say, hey, you send them a text message, are you going to come? And then that was a new thing for people too, where they would say yes or no. And, you know, they felt like obligated to go. But then because they applied for so many properties or inquired for so many properties, they'd get the same text message from every single agency out there. And they'd have to be replying to, and they'd forget to kind of say, oh, I think I've already said yes to that one, I'm going to turn up. But it was the wrong one they said yes to, and they haven't turned up to the inspection that you've driven 45 minutes to get to. So there's all these issues that come with the normalization of the booking platforms. I'm not saying don't use them. I think they're fantastic. There's definitely a place for them, and they are great. However, being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, Darren, I see you said yes that you're coming to the inspection today at 3 o'clock. Just wanted to reconfirm that you're attending, because we are going to be driving 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 20 minutes to come and meet you. Right? Then they have that weighted obligation that, oh, they're coming to see me. It's not just a random message sent to 30 people that might be attending. They're coming for me. If you can't make it, please make sure you call us 1 hour out. Or if it's a voicemail, Darren, if we haven't heard from you by 2 o'clock, we will reschedule the inspection. Right? And then you send a follow-up text message, hey, I sent your voicemail. But by putting the human person in there, just means you're getting better bang for buck, more qualification. People feel obligated to turn up. You know, they think this is special. It's a good experience.
There's one point that on my list here that we've agreed to go through, Michael, that I have overlooked. We should have talked about this earlier. But one thing that you did differently, because this podcast episode today is all about how you achieved 0 vacancy rate over 2 years with 650 properties spread over 83 suburbs. Now, you also had property in 3 states, and let's not talk about that because that's insane, right out the Elon Musk stuff, okay? But right now, the other things that you did completely differently from your competitors. Now, all your competitors just use boring photos. Let's just talk about boring marketing photos, everybody, because we don't have to be doing just photos anymore. Let's agree. You know, right? Let's agree that photos just give you a brief look at the property, a very small snapshot of something for you to make a decision. That property sort of looks like what I'm looking for, enough to me to make a decision now as a tenant. I want to go and have a look at it. But something miraculous and amazing has happened in technology, and it's been with us for a very, very long time. And that's the next level up. Well, probably 2 levels up from photos, which is virtual tours. That's the 360-degree full walkthrough. You can go through online at 2 in the morning and take a full look around the room at absolutely everything, and completely does so much more than what boring photos can do. Now, Michael, when did you bring that technology in that you were using?
Well, it's early 2010s. It was we had over 600 properties on a virtual tour platform around 2016, 2017. So for us, and Darren, you know, like as a business owner, I had staff that weren't prepared to do video walkthroughs or virtual tours because they said it took them time at the start to do it. And, you know, they didn't last very long, right? Because it's not about making your job harder, Darren, as property manager. It's about simplifying it. So, you know, and I have a lot of data around this, Darren. So if anyone questions or has any questions around using virtual tours and video as opposed to just photos that only show the good things, I'm happy to have that conversation. It is a game changer. So, you know, there are instances where you'd be having 8 inspections per property to show people, to get them through. How exhausting, Darren. That is so tiring. But if you've got a virtual tour, a video walkthrough, they can see the property, warts and all, and say, yeah, you know what, that property does suit me. I do want to physically see it, or I do want to apply for it. Or it doesn't suit me. What else have you got?
Talking more about this technology, people, you've got, let's say, for example, 2 televisions. You've got an old school 20, 30-year-old, really old, massive, clunky color TV. And now you've got a brand new 8K, you know, 75-inch widescreen unit on the wall. You're not going to watch both. You're going to switch off the old school clunky thing, throw it out because it's embarrassing, taking too much room. And Michael, photos now are that old school TV compared to virtual tours, which is the proper way to show a property. Why are we still doing old school photos when we've got virtual tours? And I know now agencies that are not doing photos at all. And when the virtual tour allows a real thorough walk through the property, when the virtual tour allows a real thorough walk through the property, my question is, why do we need photos any longer?
Well, I mean, the photos are just showcasing the best angles of a house, Darren. They're quite misleading. And that's when you get people turning up saying the photos don't match the description or the wide angle. We were using professional photographers at one point. I got rid of that and we just started doing internal ones because I didn't want to be showing the property for something that it's not. Right. And so virtual tours replaced that because people could see the whole 360 room, the whole environment, and pre-qualified them. I would also do on my iPhone a video walkthrough. Now, I say this to people and then people go, yeah, but what if the property's tenanted? What are you going to do then? You know, you're not going to be able to get through, in which case, you know, you got to do all the open for inspections. But we had a good relationship with our tenants. And I would say to the tenant, hey, would you mind if I do a quick video walkthrough with my phone of the property? I won't include anything personal, any of your personal items in there. And I'll just show this to people that have made an inquiry. This will not be posted publicly available for people online. They were always okay with that. I also would do a virtual tour of it furnished with it in there if I had permission. Knowing that once it became empty, I would then do another virtual tour. Darren, to take the photos of the virtual tour is like 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on a bigger property once you know what you're doing. And I used a Ryco Theta, put it in the middle of the room, walk out, press photo, next one, next one. So it was really quite simple. So there's no reason why you can't do a video walkthrough while it's tenanted. And again, like what we would say to the tenants are, you've given notice to vacate. Thank you so much for that. Our process will be, as we already have a virtual tour or a video, when we have all the inquiries, we're going to make sure they see that. And only once they are 100% qualified to view the property, we'll then contact you to make a time to come through. We want to keep inconvenience you down to an absolute minimum. So these are the steps that we're taking. And then if we didn't have a video or a virtual tour at the time, I'd say, look, given we don't have this yet, and to keep inconvenience to you down to an absolute minimum, this is what I propose, right? And they were all, the tenants that were in there already were more than accommodating because for them it was, oh, how do they keep the inconvenience to me down, right? So they were accommodating. So if you phrase it like that, and then, yeah, you can come back and say, oh, yeah, but the difficult tenants, that's a small percentage. Overall, tenants are good.
So let's just drill this down. Firstly, everyone, virtual tours are not as complicated and expensive as you think, because right now you can do a virtual tour on your iPhone using your iPhone with a simple attachment on it, and you can do 360-degree virtual tours, not a problem. Just go to virtual tours plural with an S on the end, virtualtourscreator.com.au. Talk to Tom there. He's got the technology to show you there is no excuse anymore on using boring, snapshot photos and instead of just showing the whole property. Because here is the deal, everybody. What virtual tours are doing is also a time management thing. You can show the property 10 times or 5 times or 4 times using boring photos, because the photos compel a person to say, yeah, I'm sort of interested now. I need to go have a proper look. Or they can have a proper look with a virtual tour, and you're dealing with a lot less people. So the whole goal is here, Michael, is that you're pushing, and like a funnel, you're pushing just to the one showing only. So we're doing one showing only, getting down to that 1 or 2 applications that you favor, right?
Exactly. There's no point in like making the job harder than what it is, or overcomplicate it. And so, part of the way that we were getting, that we had the zero vacancy, was we were aggressive. If the property someone gave notice today, it went up online today, the tenant knew what to expect. It meant that also people could apply for the property sight unseen. If they've seen the virtual tour, like physically sight unseen, we were happy to take that. At the start, like I'm talking going back mid 2000s, 2015, 16, even pushing into like 17, people were taking up virtual tour, applying for the property, satisfied. We even had a comment in our lease to acknowledge that, which was also tested, I think, in 2016 at VCAT at the time. By them applying for the property, we would then also set the move-in date. And we knew, because we had maintenance people going through, Darren, and doing part of our routines, if there was any maintenance. So there were no real big shocks when the tenant was going to vacate. And we would have gone through and organised tradespeople. It doesn't stop someone from moving into the property. Also, when the tenant is made aware, these are the things we need to get fixed, washers swapped over or whatever it is, they were aware and they were fine. So we would have them move into the property. And then if there was maintenance, anything else, they would let us know. And then we would also make sure that our leases fell on common lease dates, right? So if they moved in May, then the lease would go through, it'd be like a 14-month lease or a 15-month lease, right? And also we wouldn't have leases ending or expiring around Christmas time. So you're looking at, mid-November through to mid-January, basically, is we wouldn't have leases coming up, so that at least we put the leases into an active period, right, when people went to give notice to vacate. Otherwise, if you put yourself into a time when there's not much market movement, you're exposing yourself to having vacancies, having too much competition on the market. We also knew, Darren, in a marketplace like the suburbs we're in, where there's so many properties for rent, I could guarantee that 100% of people that inquired about our properties could see it. Other people couldn't do that. So it also meant that we had more eyeballs. So much so, Darren, that our realestate.com.au stats showed that we had more than twice the eyeballs looking at our properties than other agents across those areas. And we also rented our properties 4 times faster than other agents in those suburbs. So that meant that we did not have properties sitting on the market for a long period of time.
So let's just pull this apart here, because we've got to translate this to everyone that's listening to this. Now, number one, offices are too busy to be getting back to every tenant. We get that, but now you can with virtual assistants. So the next thing that comes up is, that's all too expensive. But Michael, you've just told me now that this whole process using virtual assistants, which is guaranteeing that you're going to rent property a lot faster because you're getting tenants through a lot quicker. You're getting properties rented a lot faster than competitors are, because they're doing it the old school way. Using virtual assistants is actually turned into renting property faster, an effective point of difference. That when you just rattled off some stats there, your point of difference stats to prospective clients, how did that help getting the deal over the line faster, quicker, at your full fees against your competitors that are doing none of this, that are too busy and would never even consider using virtual assistants with renting property. How did that help you to actually turn into money?
Well, I mean, the fact that I knew what the numbers were and I could show them, like the portal access, I could show them, these are the figures. I could show them what our average rent was. I could show them what our average lease was also. So when you're comparing our average lease term to another agent in the area, it meant they're paying less leasing fees. I guess as an agency, I'm missing out on some leasing fees, right? Some people would say, but we didn't want the stress. So we had a longer term lease. We had lower fees for the owners, not less fees. Meaning that because they were longer leases, that there weren't all these re-advertising, there wasn't all this.
You had a more state. You had less tenant turnover.
Yeah, correct. So it was a happier time for owners. But the fact that I could say to an owner, look, I guarantee that 100% of the people that want to look at your property, they will see it. Right? There's no missed inquiry. There's nothing. They will see it. Everything is documented and accounted for. And I said, when you're interviewing other agents, which, you know, if you are, ask them that question and then come back to me and let me know. And every time they came back, those who had asked the question said no, they couldn't guarantee it. They couldn't even give a clear pathway on how the people are going to access the property. Because I said to them, what happens if you've got a disgruntled tenant or if you've got a tenant in place? What are they going to do to show the property while the tenant gave notice to vacate? And the other agencies don't know how to respond to that.
And I think that's very effective, because owners, prospective clients, they generally only care about best rent, best tenant in the fastest possible time. And now, Michael, you've clearly demonstrated that with what you've done here, different from all of your competitors down the road. So everyone, if you're listening, you want a really mind-blowing, smashed out of the park point of difference around the leasing of a property real fast, because you and I know prospective clients really care about this stuff. Get in contact with Michael and he will run through, again, if you've got any questions on how this point of difference using virtual assistants, because to get that level, you need that extra service, you need that extra help, you must get that extra resource. Chat with Michael on how a virtual assistant will in fact be an effective point of difference for you to make 5 times back, 10 times back, or whatever on your virtual assistant investment. So Michael, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, go to teamsbydesign.com, contact us, and just let me know some times that you want to have a chat and we'll book that in.
Well done. All right, Michael, well, let's wrap this up, and great podcast, and take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.